How do we raise mentally healthy kids who go on to being mentally healthy, well-balanced adults? In our third episode on teenage depression, this week, Linda Sakr shares with us her best tips. What are your tips for raising mentally healthy kids who become mentally healthy adults?
Yes, my most important tip is developing an attitude of gratitude. I think if each and every single child and teen has that, wakes up in the morning and looks at what they're grateful for, counts their blessings, rather than just focusing on what's not working and then everything becomes, negative, really focusing on what is working. And what is working could be something very simple as savoring a piece of chocolate that day, having a nice, or spending quality time with their father, or whatever it is, like really mentioning what they've done, thinking about them, being grateful for them. Those things really put you in that frame of mind that things are good and things are progressing, rather than just focusing on what's not working, because life is full of good things and not so good things, but it's just really appreciating the good so that you can get through the not so good days. And the other thing that's very important is physical exercise.
Physical exercise.
Because with physical exercise, the endorphins get released, the feel-good hormones. The body's designed to move and be active, and with depression, it causes makes them more lethargic. So really, it's very important to do something, even if you don't feel like it. Just do a bit. With depression, it's bit by baby steps in a way. You don't want to overwhelm the person, but just if they do a bit, give themselves credit, it'll kind of take them through to the next. It'll motivate them to do more.
Right.
So things like that, even meditation, yoga, mindfulness cannot be underestimated, really puts them in a calm state, makes them very present as well, really very important for people of all ages, so
yes.
Highly recommended. Keep the communication channel between parents and children, and also if the child doesn't want to talk to the parents, it's okay. Let them have role models that they can talk to, adults, parents, friends, siblings, relatives. It's important that the child has that support network and feels there is that sense of community, and they feel safe enough to reach out and talk, and that it's okay to express your needs and assertively, and I think it's very important to have that. But really the best way out of depression is to take action. Even if you don't feel like it, just something small every day, reward yourself for it, is actually, if you just tidy up your room a bit for one day, give yourself credit for that, it'll help you do other things.
Right.
So that's really the key word.
Yeah, those are doable. That's, relatively easy. The American Pediatric Association, they recommend that every child over the age of 12 goes for a regular depression screening. Would you recommend?
I think there's no harm in that. Prevention is better than cure, and things can be picked up on a lot earlier, because what happens with a lot of these teens, that it goes unnoticed, and then in their early 20s you'll have an episode or something, they fall apart. So the earlier we can pick up on it, at least we can do something about it.
Right.
Now, I always say there's a solution to everything. So
yes.
if you know what it is, you can deal with it. But if you don't know what it is, it just goes unnoticed, and it doesn't just go away on its own. It needs to be managed and dealt with.
I feel these days that kids, they're more prone to sort of fall off the edge. I think we were raised stronger. Let's just put it that way. So what went wrong? Do you feel like kids these days are more vulnerable, or is it just a generation thing? What is it?
I think it's exposure. Because with us, life was a lot simpler. There were less pressures. We would go out and play. Things weren't at our fingertips. Like if I wanted an answer to something, I had to wait for it. Letters versus emails or kind of messages. It was all, nowadays there's all this instant gratification, and if you don't get a response within seconds, it can really set you back.
Right.
And these expectations have changed.
Right.
If I didn't get invited to a party when I was young, I wouldn't know about it necessarily.
Exactly.
Whereas now it's all over Instagram, and the person feels like, oh, well, I've been left out. And so there's a lot of, I think exposure has made things a lot more complicated in that sense. But times have changed for sure. And it's, and yes, like you said, we had to get on with it. It just it wasn't part of, whereas now it is a very different way of life. And I think exposure has really kind of been, it's good and bad, in the sense that too much knowledge or too much can create too much pressure.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah, it was a different time. I think the problem is we don't have a reference point.
We don't.
That's
we
the
don't.
problem.
Yes, it's so different. You can't even
Yes.
compare. You can't even relate.
Oh my God, I don't want to live anymore. How seriously should we be taking these things? Because they hear it from their friends, and maybe those friends are depressed, but they're not. How do we know how to process this?
Yes, it's very common in this age group, with this age group. So I think as parents, we need to put things in perspective and like really look at what's going on, help them understand, reframe. Is there another way of looking at this? To just kind of, like I said earlier, about decatastrophizing the situation and not blowing things out of proportion. But I wouldn't take it so literally in the sense that this is what the child necessarily is intending on doing. But I think it's important to just really reason with the child and just kind of help them understand that there are alternative ways of looking at things and how they can deal with it in a different way. Just put it in perspective. I think that's a key word.
Is anxiety depression, or is it different?
So anxiety is different. Anxiety is a state of constant worry and fear.
But it leads to depression.
They go hand in hand. So
Okay.
a lot of people that have depression have anxiety, and sometimes they don't.
Right.
I mean, anxiety is all about the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? It's very future oriented. Whereas depression is very past oriented, in the sense that you're dwelling about the past and what's happened, and you're stuck in that mindset. And
Oh, really?
so it's quite different, So we don't want the past and we don't want the future. What we really want to create is a good present. If our present is good, our future is going to be good. If our present is not good, then chances are our future is not going to be positive.
So guys, I think Linda's answered some very valid questions, and I think you've given us some really important pointers there. I think a daily sort of ritual, a routine of gratitude for something as small as a piece of chocolate or a play date, or whatever it is that made your child happy that day, and I guess that helps them to focus on the present, because if you have a good present, you're going to have a good future. And finally, take action, and go see someone, right?
Seek professional help.
We'll be sharing Linda's details in the description below. Please like, please subscribe, and thank you for watching. Bye!